Kia ora and welcome to today's show. I am Kirsty, the team leader here over at Frog Recruitment, and I'm going to be taking over today's show in Shannon's absence. So on today's show, can New Zealand's digital nomad visa help to reverse the brain drain in 2025? This week, we're going to be joined by Paul Janssen, General Manager at Turner Hopkins Immigration Specialists, to discuss New Zealand's new digital nomads visa and what it could mean for the world of work in Aotearoa. Also on today's show, we have got, is New Zealand's economy back on track? We'll also explore our latest hot jobs across New Zealand. And then lastly, we will reveal our new social media insights around taking pay cuts to work remotely full-time. Okay, so jumping in today's show, recently New Zealand has announced plans to introduce a digital nomad visa. This is going to be aimed at attracting remote workers from around the world. So the visa would allow people to live in New Zealand while working online for overseas companies or clients. So it's going to be designed to appeal to freelancers, entrepreneurs, professionals who can work from anywhere, and then they're going to be helping to bring new skills and spending into the country. So to discuss this a little bit further today, we're joined by Paul Janssen, General Manager at Turner Hopkins. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you, very good. And looking forward to discussing the topic.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about it. So I suppose first things to kick off things, why do you think that New Zealand has chosen to introduce this visa?
It's a really good question. I think there's probably two main reasons. The first one would be around the national government's push for economic growth. And we all saw in February that there was a big push to sort of drive growth, given the economic situation here at the moment. And a quick, easy win to do that is tourism. So obviously bringing more people across the border to spend more money is a simple way to help push that growth. So very quickly, they rolled out this digital nomad visa idea. And just to be clear, it's not a new visa as such. In fact, it's just a change to existing visitor visas. So that was the main, I think, impetus, was to try and get a quick run on the board, a quick, easy win. And there was no substantial policy change. We didn't have to introduce a new visa. It was a very quick tweak to existing visa conditions. So straight away, it sort of spread around the world. And digital nomads are a bit of a hot topic pretty much everywhere. I also think we were a bit slow in introducing this. A lot of other countries have done something similar and have taken it as an advantage. And I think we were maybe a little bit behind in that sense. So to roll it out now, I think is good timing. It will help boost economic growth. It's good for the tourism sector, and we all know we need to get back to those pre-pandemic levels. So anything we can do to drive that market is great. So that's probably the main reason. The second reason is that we've actually had digital nomads in New Zealand for years. And the reality is people have been coming here and working remotely for a very long time. They just didn't realise that they could do it or couldn't do it. And the irony is immigration didn't actually realise whether they could or couldn't either. There's a lot of confusion around what the rules could allow someone on a visitor visa to do. So for example, if you travelled here for a couple of weeks and you checked your emails or you took a Zoom call or basically did anything work related for your offshore employer, were you in breach or were you not in breach? And I guess there is a difference between checking the occasional email and maybe taking the occasional phone call, or coming here and sitting here for 8 hours a day developing the next best iPhone application. So there was a lot of confusion. If you asked immigration, and we did on many occasions, the industry did ask to seek clarification, and you'd get mixed messages. Some would say, yes, you can do that. Some would say, no, strictly speaking, you can't. So I think the second reason was this just clarified a rather grey, vague part of the policy of what people could do on visitor visas. And that was largely brought about by the pandemic. We had a lot of people stranded here for a long time, and many of them carried on working remotely. So we kind of accepted that people had been doing it, and now we've just clarified the rules around it.
Yeah, that's really good. It was a conversation we were having the other day in the office, because that was one of the points I kind of said, like, oh, I thought people were doing that. So, yeah, it's great to see that the visas now come in line. And just to your point around the tourism side, I was reading an article earlier that had showcased that tourism has actually had quite a positive impact in terms of like hotels, bars, restaurants, car rentals. So we've already started to see that impact of that international tourism. So hopefully we'll see it continue. So do you think the visa could help attract talent to New Zealand and reverse the so-called brain drain that we've been experiencing in recent years?
Yeah, that's a really good question and quite a difficult one to answer. I guess there are two parts to it. So the brain drain is motivated, I think, by quite different reasons to people who might want to come here and to migrate here permanently. So in terms of people leaving New Zealand, that's generally always a pretty economic thing, looking for better opportunities, more work, possibly lifestyle reasons as well. But people migrating here are coming often based on push factors. So they might have to feel like they have to leave their particular country there for various reasons: crime, security, safety. There's a whole range of factors. So you have New Zealanders leaving the country for a set of reasons, and then people coming into the country for a slightly different set of reasons. And so I don't think they're always kind of matched together. I know the government is concerned about the number of people leaving and wanting to top that up as well. I don't know if this on its own will be the magic answer to replacing the skills we need. I think we need a combination of things that markets New Zealand. So the digital nomad visa will definitely do that. It will help to market New Zealand to the world as a place that is forward-thinking and is working in sort of a modern environment. And it will give people the chance to try before they buy. I guess that's one way of looking at it. But I think we also need a set of visa policies that attract migrants in, the right kind of migrants, and make that process as simple as possible. So I guess to answer the question, will it solve the problem? No, but it will certainly help to bring people into the country who will hopefully stay. And given the target of the digital nomad, if you think about the way it works, it's really targeting the tech sector, because there's not a lot of other industries who are going to be able to use this. You're not going to have tradespeople working remotely in New Zealand, but that's okay. I mean, these are the kinds of young, bright, qualified, reasonably well-paid people that we want to stay longer term. So yeah, I think it's all positive, and I think it will assist in topping up the skilled migrant process, but I don't think on its own it's the sort of magic answer.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see where you're going, and especially with businesses looking to bring people back to the office. So it is mainly in that tech space where we are seeing that remote working continue, whereas other operations are slowly trying to bring people back, whether that's hybrid or completely. So yeah, I can definitely see where you're looking into that side. So I know that you've already mentioned quite a lot of positive or the benefits of it. Are there any other benefits that you could see, or are there any pitfalls that could come from this?
This is actually one of those really rare policies, because I deal with these sorts of things all the time. And in fact, in the last few years, policy change has become the norm. I've been doing this for 22 years, and probably since COVID rolled around, and certainly since we opened the borders again in 2022, I haven't seen this much policy change all happening at once. And often policy change has unintended consequences. So when you roll something out or change something or do something, you're often sort of scratching your head further down the line when you realise what further impacts pop up. But this is one of those rare policies where it was such a simple change. And I think because we were changing something that we knew was already happening, we were fixing something that people were already doing and simply clarifying things for people and then promoting it as a digital nomad visa. It actually doesn't have that many unintended consequences. It's really all upside. There are parts of the economy and the population who initially, I think, panicked a little bit because they thought we might be overrun by people carrying laptops and sitting in cafes or basically taking over all the accommodation options. The reality is the numbers won't be that high. There'll certainly be a lift and we'll see an increase as we have seen. But I think the benefits are we'll get tourists for longer. So these people will be coming for months at a time, not weeks at a time. And that gives the accommodation sector more certainty. Hospitality will pick up. They'll be coming with good incomes. They'll be travelling and spending. And so for me, I think there are really no downside issues with this kind of approach. I think it's practical. I think people have already been doing it to a certain degree, so it just clarifies that process. And it has the potential to attract some really great longer-term skilled migrants. And once they're here, they experience the lifestyle in New Zealand, they see what it is like to live here and to work, they might just go out and look for those jobs that will give them a pathway to residence. And I think that's fantastic. So there are obviously complications in terms of taxation and things that people need to consider. And those might be issues that surface later. And I suspect the government may look at how we address that taxation issue for those who do stay longer than the 90 days. But those will all be ironed out. But in terms of negatives, I don't really see any.
Okay, no, that's good to know. And I suppose one of the things that has come up for Kiwi workers, like a concern, is would an influx of remote workers, could that increase competition in the job market, do you think?
I don't think so. And again, I think it's largely industry related because a lot of these, or the majority of these digital nomads are coming in the tech space. These are the people who would be applying for these jobs from afar anyway if they were interested in a work visa or residence path. So the simple fact that they'll be here earning a living working for an overseas employer and maybe looking for jobs locally doesn't change that dynamic. They still have to go through a process if they want to work for a New Zealand employer, so nothing has changed in that respect. We're not going to be flooded with these people. Again, the volumes won't be massive, but they'll be good enough to give us a bit of a boost. So I don't think there is a real threat there. If this was something that opened the door to a lower level skill bracket, that might have an influence or might have an impact. But the rules have been written in such a way that it is pretty clear. If you're coming here to work remotely, you cannot be engaged with a New Zealand employer in any way, shape or form. Otherwise, you cross that line. And these are the kinds of people who will be very cognizant of that. They do this in other countries. A lot of these remote workers will have travelled the world and worked remotely, and New Zealand will be one stop on that tour. So I don't think that it'll suddenly create an unlevel playing field in the local market. And if anything, I think it gives New Zealand employers access to good quality applicants when they're here. And I think that's a really good boost for the tech sector and for other sectors as well, R&D and so forth. But again, it's a fear that pops up whenever we talk about any sort of work conditions for migrants at all. And whenever we talk about increasing the number of migrants or the number of temporary visa holders, there is always a bit of a panic reaction from the local populace as to, they're all going to take our jobs. And that's really never happened. It's never happened historically, and I certainly don't see it happening here.
Yeah, nice. And then just in terms of the metrics or indicators, what should we be looking out for whether this visa is successful or not successful?
And that's a tricky question because we've traditionally never been very good at measuring what people do when they get here. I mean, we do know what visas they hold and we have a rough idea as to what skill level they're in. But because of the way this visa was rolled out, or rather not this visa, but the conditions were attached to visitor visas, we actually have no idea or no way of knowing of 1,000 visitor visas we approve today, how many of those are coming for the sort of sole purpose to work remotely, or how many are coming to go to Hobbiton, how many are coming to visit family. So we don't we haven't asked that question as part of the application process, and maybe we should, because that would be useful information to know whether we are attracting those people into the country. My sort of gut feel, though, is that given it was reasonably quickly rolled out because we needed it to boost tourism, it was a quick, easy win, that was something that wasn't considered, and I don't think the government is overly worried about sort of tracking success. It's a bit different to perhaps if you had a separate digital nomad visa, so you purpose-built a visa for this, then you'd kind of want to know, is it being taken up? Are people using it? How does it compare to other categories? But they haven't done that. And I suspect they're not overly bothered. They're probably going to be looking at just the general lift in tourism. I guess one way you could measure it is how long people are staying. So if people are coming on a visitor visa, and typically you might come for 2, 3 or 4 weeks, but now they're staying for 2, 3 or 4 months, that would be an indicator that those people are probably here working remotely. So we're not really going to know. We're not going to have the exact numbers, but I think we'll get an anecdotal feel out of just the general lift and the length of time people are staying.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's great. And I think, like you said, I think it's a very positive change that's been made. So hopefully we've already started to see some impacts from tourism. So hopefully we start seeing a bit more. But thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate you jumping on today. If anyone wanted to find out more information, where can they find you?
They can email me, so that's Paul Janssen at turnerhopkinsimmigration.co.nz, or just paul.janssen at turnerhopkins.co.nz. Give me a call, 09 486 9574, or visit my website, turnerhopkinsimmigration.co.nz.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the big news for this week is that New Zealand is officially out of a recession, with the economy growing by 0.7% in the last quarter of 2024. So this follows two consecutive quarters of decline, which had put us into recession. So the rise has driven growth in the sectors like real estate, retail and accommodation, and that's helped by our higher spending from our international tourists, which we mentioned earlier on with Paul. So healthcare has also grew. However, construction is still feeling the burn of it all, with the biggest drop alongside the media sector. The small lift in the economy is a positive sign for the market, showing that things may start to turn around in a tough period. And we're definitely starting to see some of those green shoots here at Frog Recruitment as well. So we are starting to feel it move a little bit. While the growth is still slow, it is giving business a little bit more confidence. It gives job seekers a little bit more confidence, and we're starting to feel it a little bit more. So if the trend continues, we could see more job opportunities coming up, stronger consumer spending, and better support for key sectors like tourism and exports. However, it may take a little bit of time. I don't think it's going to be as drastic as when we came out of COVID. So it is going to be a slow climb out, but we're definitely starting to see that turn. So this is the last chance for you to complete our 2025 market survey. You can have your say on the future of work. Help us identify salary trends, talent attraction and retention strategies in your industry. So we have got a project manager position, which is more of an L&D project based in Auckland, a program manager role over in Wellington, an employment and a family law solicitor position. So if you are looking for work at the moment and you are interested, then please do get in contact with the consultants in the Auckland or the Wellington. And that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your Friday.